Coup d'etat is not new in the world, and it is not a new concept in Africa. Since from the pre-colonial days, guards of kings and notables and families of kings have orchestrated coup d'etat. And now, the introduction of democracy and also the decolonization process of the African continent, coup d'etat has also taken an upsurge as far as that is concerned. And the first coup d'etat to be experienced since the decolonization process and the introduction of the definition of the contextual West democracy, coup d'etat started in Togo in 1963, then came to Nigeria and followed the Gambia in 1994 and other African nations. In recent times, we have experienced coup d'etat in French colonies in Africa, Mali, Burkina Faso. Now we are talking about Niger, Guinea, amongst the nations that have had successful coup d'etat within 2 years. And in Cameroon, there was an attempted coup d'etat on the 6th of April 1984. With all of these, many have been asking the question, what is the push factor of coup d'etat and what could be responsible for this increase in coup d'etat sentiment across the French African countries? We recently also saw an attempted coup, or many still say it's a coup, in what happened in Chad. And also we are experiencing a threat in the Central African Republic. We cannot claim that we don't know the factor or the cause of coup d'etat. We can also claim that the West doesn't know the factor or the cause of the coup d'etat. In fact, the West cannot be Judas Iscariot in these circumstances of military coup in Africa. John Bolton, a senior U.S. official, in an interview with CNN, the cable news network, openly confessed that America has been responsible for some coup d'etat across the world, and that should be more also precise in Africa. And when you look at the resurgence of coup d'etat, many of these military coups, let me isolate it, military coup, is in Africa, and few in the Western nation and also in the second world and the third world, like in Myanmar, where we experienced a military coup in that area. Let me come now to context as to why this military coup. The West cannot again say they are not responsible in funding some of this coup d'etat, either by the policies they put in place or by the boots on the ground. The fact of the matter here is, military coup is because of bad governance, non-respect of the constitution, also corruption, underdevelopment, and failed promises. These are the factors that are openly responsible for military coup in Africa and in some parts of the world. Military coup in Africa is attributed to bad governance, underdevelopment, failed promises, non-respect of the constitution. In fact, the non-respect of the constitution, in other words, can be defined as a civilian coup. A civilian coup, when a state has a constitution that the mandate of the head of state shall only be for 2 years, non-renewable, and the constitution is such that it shall be unlimited, that in all fairness, in all academic definition, in all philosophical definition, is a coup d'etat. When the constitution is put in place at the level of the electoral submission, that a candidate must win the valid vote and it must be tallied and transparent. And when the votes are tallied and changed affectedly, directly to favor a particular candidate, that is also coup d'etat. And when that happens, it now pushes the common man, the popular force, now to rely on the military. We recently experienced, and we are watching the happenings in Nigeria, how many tens of thousands gathered in front of the military headquarters in Nigeria, in Abuja, openly calling for the military to take over because of what they describe as failed electoral promises from the INEC and also no respect of the constitutional provision in declaring who won the election. And civil society organizations and some activists stormed the Nigerian military headquarters and say, please, dear military, take over. To them, they know that the military, when they take over, the military will instill law, because the responsibility of every military, they have sworn to take over the nation, to protect the nation in all fairness and lives and properties, and also to defend the constitution. And that is why we saw how Nigerians could storm the military headquarters to say their military take over. We cannot also say, when a constitution is put in place and you see that this constitution is not respected, it is also a coup d'etat. And so when we are looking at this phrase of coup d'etat, we must also understand that coup d'etat mustn't only be military. And when a civilian coup d'etat exists, it now pave the way for a potential military coup d'etat to take over. And also failed promises. When you promise and you make a gentleman agreement that this is going to happen like this, and it doesn't go that way, it is an avenue for coup d'etat. You are paving the way for coup d'etat. The West also is responsible. Most of those who carry out civilian coup d'etat, who cheat during election, who also malhandle their civilians when they get off for popular uprising because of increasing prices of commodities and also poor governance, when these persons are successfully clamp down on the population, the West will embrace them, will give them kisses and hugs. The West will give them avenues to come and invest in their nation. Even when they embezzled money in their home countries, they will take to the West. They will be given a red carpet reception. They will be given guards to be protected. In fact, they will be praised, and they will be given national, international media to profile them and sing their praises at the advent of the common man, while the common man in their nation is bleeding. And let's look at the recent happenings in Russia, the Russian African Summit. The military leader of Burkina Faso was clear in his outing and asked a salient question. Why is it that despite all the numerous resources that Africa has, it has not been able to develop? And that, he said, this is a question that many youth are asking. And that explained why he may have taken over from that nation, because of insecurity and other underdevelopment. It is a time for us to look at the issue of coup d'etat and ask one question: what could be the possible reason why many of the Western nations support those who carry out civilian coup d'etat? They only quickly condemn the military coup d'etat. And what of civilian coup d'etat that gives birth to military coup d'etat? And we are also asking the questions: are others, French Africans, safe when it comes to coup d'etat? Because we have witnessed consistent military coups successfully in Mali, Guinea, Niger, and of course Burkina Faso. Are the French Africans safe when it comes to that? This is House of Commons with me, Tah Mai Jarvis. Happy birthday to you, Michelle Peggy Ronnie. Michelle Peggy, happy birthday to you, joyeux anniversaire to you, and many more years. And may the good God continue to guide you as you celebrate today's birthday. As you celebrate your birthday, may God in His infinite mercy see you through and protect you and your family, and also be with you that you may continue to celebrate many more birthdays. I also want to wish happy Sunday to all those of you who are watching us online, to those of you watching us on Facebook, YouTube. Want to say happy Sunday to you. Thanks for your contribution. You can also participate in the program by sending us a SMS or a WhatsApp message on the number on your screen, because today we have a very big guest in the studio, and someone who has played a key role in the redefinition of the African democracy, and also he has been connecting with several African leaders right from the period of the late 90s and early 90s, late 90s, and also in contact and advisor to some presidents across Africa, and also someone who promotes education from a different perspective. He is a peace crusader as far as Cameroon is concerned, and regards Cameroon as a nation that we must respect the diversity of others and be one another's keeper, and also former presidential candidate in Cameroon's presidential election and a flag bearer of good governance, democracy. I'm talking about Mr. Jukam Chamani. He's here in the studio with us. Happy Sunday and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jarvis. Thanks a lot for having me.
Okay, and thanks for taking out time of your busy schedule to be with us today.
It's my pleasure.
We also have our regular analyst here, Nick Anu, who shall be joining me to actually scrutinize some of the issues to be discussed here on today's edition with Mr. Jukam Chamani. Nick Anu, happy Sunday to you.
Happy Sunday to you, Tah Mai Jarvis. Happy Sunday to my fellow panelists. Nice meeting you. We used to watch you on air, and it's a privilege to share a panel with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And also we want to say a happy Sunday to you, Mr. Nyam Robert, and of course Juan from the United States of America, Micah Kayla, and Senior. Happy Sunday to all those of you watching us in diaspora in the United States of America. Mr. Chamani, I'll begin with you. I'll start the question by having your opening statement as far as this topic today is concerned. Before I start my question, we've just looked at the French Afrique. Also, we have had now the Russian Afrique Summit. Let's start with the Russian Afrique Summit. Just what had happened, your opinion of what happened within the week on that.
The Russian African Summit, it's in its second edition. And then it took place within a special context. The first one was quite successful in terms of head of state attendance. And then this second one occurred within the framework of the war in Ukraine, which definitely affected the amount of people, head of state attending physically, but did not diminish the number of delegations that were there. The West did all that they could, and then even Sassou Nguesso said it. I don't know if you saw it. Yes. Sassou Nguesso said that he went all the way to, I think, to Dubai, and then was unable to find a plane to take him to Russia, and because of the insurance companies trying to sabotage the summit. But this summit is really a manifestation of the strategic or the geostrategic shift in the balance of forces that is occurring in the world today, and then this heavy presence of African delegation shows that many head of states in Africa are understanding that that shift is occurring, and they want to pull the best out of it. Of course, it's always a bit kind of shameful to see 54 African countries going there to meet just one single president. You know, that's the image I didn't like. I didn't like Putin sitting down there and having all those people just lining up and then saying hello to him. Because Africa don't want to pull out of this type of thing in reality. And in fact, President Ruto of Kenya had said that the African Union had decided that when there's such a summit, they will only send 3 people. But I guess they, you know, because it's disrespectful, in fact, to have 54 people
leave their nation.
They leave all the country to go and then meet this one single president. We can send the president of the African Union and then the president of the African Union Commission, plus maybe the former president. 3 people, they go there and then they say, okay, this is what Africa wants to do. But we are going to get there. But generally speaking, I think it's a good thing that Africa understand that they have to get out of the monopoly grip of Western powers over them.
Okay, now let's get to the topic. We are looking at rising military coup d'etat in French Africa, and we're asking the question at other safe with, and it's an exclamation of Niger. And first of all, we are talking about, look at this, men who have the conception of French Afrique.
Yes.
French Afrique, what is this simply explanation of the French Afrique, and how did it come about? How did we get to French Afrique? When did it happen? And so now on the rising military coup.
Well, Kwame Nkrumah has defined in his book called Neocolonialism, Last Stage of Imperialism, defined neocolonialism as a country having all the outside trappings of sovereignty, but its economy, therefore its politics, is still controlled by outside powers. In fact, the independence that African countries had mainly in 1960s was just a passage from colonialism to neocolonialism, be it former British colonies or French colonies or Portuguese or Spanish colonies. So they just passed from a form of blatant domination where you had a foreign head of administration to a type of administration where you now had a flag, you now had a national
currency,
anthem,
institutions.
Some of them had currency because in the French, former French colonies, they did not even have a currency. So neocolonialism, that's what it was. And then even what happened in South Africa in 1994 with Mandela is a form of passage from domestic colonialism to domestic neocolonialism, in the sense that the white people that control over apartheid, shifted the power to a black government, but white remained in control of the economy. So that's what typically neocolonialism is. But France Afrique is a deeper form of neocolonialism, because here they don't even give you the complete trappings of sovereignty. They just blatantly, for instance, keep your money. So France Afrique was a form of French neocolonialism whereby France gave a form of independence to its former colonies, but really kept most of the control, and then did so openly that it became ridiculous. And then one of the form of France Afrique was the money. What they kept all the former French colonies have this unique, that they are the only country in the world that claim to be independent but do not have their own currency. Rather they kept the France CFA, and France CFA means actually Colonie Française d'Afrique. Most people don't know that. Today they just kind of shifted the definition of that acronym, but in fact it was France de Colonie Française d'Afrique.
France,
the Colonie Française d'Afrique. C is for Colonie, and F is for France, and then Afrique.
Yes, Afrique.
That's what CFA is. And when the country became so-called independent, that money remained, and then they just changed it down to Communauté Financière Africaine and something like that.
That's a mark.
So France Afrique also is, so France CFA is one characteristic of France Afrique, that is countries that don't even have that currency. And then the second is secret accords that gives to France privilege over the natural resources of those former colonies. So this was put in place by de Gaulle and Foucault, in the 50s. And, and today, most former French colonies are still under the grip of those secret agreements, and then are still using that colonial money.
Now, I want to ask this question, because you have actually established the connection and the definition of France Afrique. And you said, when we look at the neocolonialism, that the French Afrique is a deeper form, because the deeper form in that there is full grip of both the economy and partially the social and political, as compared to South Africa and other nations where the West control primarily the economy, but you see the other aspect where the nation purported to be independent have some control.
That's why it's important to say this, though, is that both the British, the Americans, and the French never intended to give full independence to the colonies, and that they have used instruments like the IMF, the World Bank, and then all sorts of things to actually control the resources of Africa. That is a fact. So there is no such thing. I don't want people to think that there is a good neocolonialism and then a bad one. All neocolonialism are bad. The U.S. has exercised neocolonialism on Latin America and then in some places in Africa. It is
we keep seeing that even currently in Mexico, where the U.S. want to impose, or Mexico want to impose on Cuba.
That's right. And then I mean, it's America that killed,
and also Venezuela
that killed Lumumba in the Congo. So you have to understand that the CIA, and then
John Bolton said it, the America has been responsible.
That's right. So the coups are exactly like a manifestation of neocolonialism. However, we have to say this, is that neocolonialism is an attempt to hide, to dress up colonialism in new clothes. So they will give you a suit now, they'll give you a top hat and stuff like that. So the Americans will give you that stuff, but the French will just give you a caleçon. That's all you will get. Okay,
you have some questions? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I want to come now to the question in itself. When we look at this, the wave of anti-French sentiment, could this be because the people are tired of these neo-colonialists and the heavy grip on their resources?
Absolutely. Because there is no question that there is a strong wave of anti-French sentiment, taking over in most of the former French colonies, and this is due to precisely a form of tiredness. People are sick of it, sick of this control, total control that France has over not only their currency, secret military accords, the power over the educational system, over the cultural structures and stuff like that, and then all of this happening within a context where France itself is losing power, in Europe, and then Africans are asking themselves, why are we going to continue to accept this from a country that itself cannot even take care of its own internal affairs? So there is that strong sentiment. But I have to say that that sentiment has been in Cameroon for the longest, because Cameroon is the only former, we were not actually a colony of France, but they kind of took over by force here.
Yeah, we're actually a colony of the Germans.
Yes, we were a German colony, and then we were actually a U.S. mandate and a trusteeship.
Trusteeship mandate to be.
Exactly. But nonetheless, France, using that heavy method, started a war. I mean, the Cameroonians reacted by a war against France from 1955 to 1970. So making Cameroon the only French-dominated territory that actually took up arms against France. And so that created a lot of resentment, and that is still deep into some sectors, in Cameroon. So I could say that the anti-French sentiment started in Cameroon, and now it has taken over almost all the former French colonies today.
Yeah, if we follow what you are saying, is that Cameroon became the first within this French Afrique to start the anti-French sentiment.
Oh yes,
and that was because of Omniobel and Felix Roland-Moumi.
The fight of UPC.
The fight of UPC, which began by the immediate reunification and independent and reunification.
That's right.
Of Cameroon.
That's right. UPC position was clear, was that we're not a colony of France, and then from 1952, was going to the UN and then say to the UN, you know, take your responsibility, we have territory under you. So we want to go immediately to reunification
And
first.
independent.
No, reunification first.
First, before independent.
And now, 5 years after independence, so that was the plan. And then, you know, it was, and then, you know, they met, you know, UPC met with political parties in British Cameroon in 1952. They had a meeting in Kumba, then another meeting in Ezeka before he went to the UN. And then that was the plan. Unfortunately, France, the British, and then America, you know, comploted, you know, I mean, just quell that, that plan.
In what you are saying, so we can also say that with this American not take, it means the coup d'etat started by the West started the coup d'etat.
Well,
if we have to go by this agreement, the gentleman agreement, that okay, we're under this trusteeship, and so we wanted that this should happen like this, but you failed us, it means it's a coup d'etat.
Exactly. You know, it's quite interesting that you see it that way, and because it's actually true. What is a coup? A coup is any form of change that does not follow pre-established laws and agreements. That's what it is. So when you make a coup, you are actually using a method of accessing to power, but not using the constitution or any form of agreement that you have. And then it's quite interesting that indeed,
yes,
you are absolutely right. What happened in Cameroon is that the British and the French did a coup and took over Cameroon illegally in 1916.
Yeah, because if we look at the definition of coup d'etat,
that's what happened. and then we are still suffering from that coup d'etat that happened in 1916.
On that, in the light of a coup d'etat, and I want to ask that if you want to follow in that light, say that internally in Cameroon, what happened on the 20th of May 1972 can be considered as an internal coup d'etat that took place.
Well, unfortunately, Cameroon is a country that has only lived through coups. You know, we might have one failed
military
attempt, one failed military coup, but all the history of Cameroon has been a history of coups. From the British and the French taking over the territory to now, if you sit there, the British take the territory and then try to rule it inside Nigeria. And then you saw the resistance.
The Eastern Regional Crisis.
Exactly.
It gave us the Eastern Regional Crisis.
Exactly right. You know, you saw how people fighting against that. No, we're not the Nigerians. You know, so you can't rule us like we Nigerians and stuff. No, we want, you know. So you see that. And then on the side of the French, what the French did is that they put Cameroon in the Afrique Française.
Yes.
And then it wasn't, you know, so you had the resistance of UPC. And eventually, when they put UPC out, the war started, but they put Aïdjo in place. And then you see even Aïdjo himself rule through a successive coup. No, first, before Aïdjo, it was Mbida.
Yes, and Marie Mbida, who ruled for 8 months.
Yes, he ruled for 8 months. France organized a coup against Mbida, put Aïdjo in place. And then Aïdjo, what he did was nothing but coups after coup. Civilian coups. You know, so in 1960, he became president without going through universal suffrage. Yeah, he wasn't elected. That man was not elected president. He became president. And then in 1966, he banned all political parties.
And instituted the draconian
law.
Before
that, in 1961, you know, they organized this fake federation, you know, that now is creating problems today because, you know, that the reunification was fake. You know, it was a fake federation from the start. And then I always say this: I blame in as much Aïdjo as I would blame Foncha and the Munas for playing the game of France in those days. And now Aïdjo's move on, 66 banned political parties, you know, and then 1972, after France had finished killing UPC, you know, and then 1972, they move on and then, you know, just kill that fake federation that was there. And then in 1984, there was another coup. You know, you change the name.
Yes.
You just
back to the Republic of Cameroon.
Back to the Republic of Cameroon. You know, so Cameroon has known successive coups. You know, so that was.
If we look at the definition of coup,
if the definition of the coup is any change that is done against pre-existing agreement or laws. Yes.
Now let me come now to why is it that the moment where we started experiencing the French anti-sentiment in some of these French Afrique, we indirectly saw the splurge and upcoming of terrorism. Terrorism increased in some areas, like in Mali. You experienced when even Keita was there, terrorism increased when they started the anti-French sentiment. We go to Burkina Faso, terrorism started. Come to Cameroon, the north of Cameroon, Boko Haram. The moment when the French anti-French sentiment took up again, we started experiencing Boko Haram to the east of Cameroon, the Seleka rebel encroachment, and all these things. What is the link now? I want to understand. Is there a link between this anti-French sentiment and the increase in terrorism?
All right. So before I answer your question, I want to go back a little bit in coups and then jump on something that you said in your introduction on the causes. What create coups? And then you find out that we have three causes of coups. External causes, where a foreign power actually uses that method to put in place a government, or to overthrow a government that they don't like, and then put a government that is more docile to their interest. And then you have the second cause, that will be an infighting between faction of the ruling class inside the country. You know, so it could be religious factions or ethnic factions, or otherwise, you know, some sort of yes. So you have that, and then you also have coups that may be inspired by the people. That is when a government loses legitimacy, and then the people rise and overthrow the government. You know, so that happened. The latter one is I would say, the best coup that could happen, because it responds to the aspiration and the will of the people. But the other two coups are, you know, more prevalent. That's the one that happen more often. And then sometimes they even tie. You know, you have coups that are inspired by infighting within the ruling class, but that is helped by a foreign, you know, powers, with the intervention of foreign power. However, and then, so a coup can be violent or non-violent. You know, it could be made by military or by civilian. So at least we have that one done. Now, I'll go back to your link between the anti-French sentiment and the terrorism. Clearly, terrorism, it's a means by which foreign powers have attempted to take back control in territory where they feel that they might lose it. And France is not the only one that started terrorism. In fact, it's a big USA, you know, the master of democracy, that as the greatest founders of terrorists. You know, most of those Islamic terrorist groups were actually were created by the CIA. So it's clear. You know, so in Afghanistan, you know, they started funding those guys to fight against the Russians in Afghanistan, and then, you know, later on, most of the big funders of terrorist group has been the Saudi Arabia. You know, so America is the #1 creator of terrorist groups. And in Africa, in the case of Africa, when you come to Africa, what you see is that coups or terrorists, and more recently, everywhere you see terrorist group happening, you see that there are some resources that were found. This surge of terrorism is an attempt of the West to use means to push out competition from China, from Russia, from India. Because China doesn't go where there's war. When there's war, China pulls out. So when there's resources, if they use purely commercial means and rules of, China will win, or India might win, or Brazil might win, or Turkey might win. But when the West loses, then they go and create terrorism in that area, chase off the competition, and now come as the savior. So they start the fire, and then they come as sapeur-pompier. Yeah, that's right. So terrorism is clearly that for the West in general, and particularly for France, it is clear in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger. It is clear, and even in Cameroon with Boko Haram here. Cameroon military have arrested some French people among the so-called Boko Haram. They are the one that are creating terrorism everywhere, and then they're coming there so-called to help fight against something that they started.
But the French government on numerous occasions have maintained that they have no link with terrorists and they are not funding terrorism across the French Afrique, and also that they are there to secure or to on the invitation of some of these governments to come and help them, like a case in Mali, like a case in Burkina Faso.
Well, that's the legacy of French neocolonialism.
Are you by chance saying that they are living in denial?
Well, you know what happened in Mali? France, the Malian troops will go, and then when they're about to defeat the terrorists, France will intervene to protect the terrorists. That's why Goita is so against France. And then he says, come on, man, we can't continue to get killed by these people, and when we want to defeat them, the French troops will say, no, you cannot go here, you cannot go there. They will move in and protect them. Even in Niger, if you hear what the military have against Bazoum is what? They're saying that every time we are about to circle them down, we will have word from the presidency saying, wait, just let's wait for our French partners to agree first before we move. And then they say they were sick of it. Okay,
and now you have taken us now to the next question. The next question which I want to ask is that what explains or what could be the reason behind this? When you look at these countries, the recent successful coup d'etat, what could be the reason? Because we have, if I started with Mali,
that's
successful, a move to Guinea.
That's right.
Successful, a move to Burkina Faso. Successful, it has now moved to Niger. And that's your friend.
That's why. Yes.
The president of Niger is your friend, and you wrote a book.
I wrote a book,
and you are part of his advice. You're part of his advice.
I am sorry, but he wasn't listening to me. But sorry. Well, let's just go back to this serial coups.
I don't know. Before you continue, now my question now is: we have seen this fall. Could there be a threat in the next? Could the list increase to the feet?
Like Chad, for
well, is there a possibility to have the feet within the nearest?
There was already a coup in Chad, but let me just go back a little bit to why are those coups happening? Because what happened in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and now in Niger are quite linked to the fight against terrorism, and then the inability of civilian government to conduct this war against terrorism because they are hand-tied by the French and the French military accords that they have signed with France to so-called protect them against the terrorists that are funded by France. So the military take over because they find themselves dying in the front, in the war front. And then while the civilians are sitting down there, enjoying life, and then going to Paris, drinking champagne with Macron and stuff like that. You know, so this explains those coups. Everywhere you have those coups, that will be the complaint of the military. And of course, when terrorism starts in the country, most of the resources of that country goes toward fighting the war against the terrorists. As a result, education, health, you know, and other social services of the government goes down, and it creates also in the country a social crisis that now makes it easy for coup to take place. So I'm not, you know, I'm not justifying coups. I don't think that coups are a good thing as such, but I'm just explaining
the factors.
Yes, those are the factors that created those recent coups.
Okay.
And then, and clearly, now, now that people are aware that the French are behind those coups, or that they behind terrorism, that creating all those difficulties, you know, there is clearly a link between, therefore, the anti-French sentiment, the coups, and terrorism. This kind of
Yeah, just wondering, who are, first of all, these terrorists? Are they fabricated, or the French maybe just they come to communities that may have inter-community conflict and then instrumentalize them to give an impression that they're terrorists, or who are them? Who are they?
That's an interesting question. Yeah. So let me first start with Burkina Faso, you know, where I actually live, and then I have a house there. I've been in Burkina Faso for many years. Terrorists hide, the ones that you have there in the Sahelian region, they hide behind some sort of religion, jihad, or something like that. That's just the, like
the case of Nigeria, Boko Haram.
Yeah, that's just the front. That's just the front. Forget that. Those people are not Muslim or anything like that. They are just terrorists. They're just drug dealers and weapon peddlers and stuff like that. But what do? They will come in poor, extremely poor communities. Let's talk about Burkina Faso. You know, Burkina Faso government, contrary to the Cameroonian government that has outposts everywhere. That is, you don't go 1 square kilometer in Cameroon that is not under the control of a sous-prefet, commandant de brigade, or commissaire spécial. But in Burkina Faso, you have like 60% of the country where you don't have no police station, and then no schools, and then no nothing, you know, no hospitals, and then, you know, so they will come in those places, recruit young people, train them, and then have them fight. You know, so the terrorists are not necessarily imported.
So in that case, we can say it's a consequence of failed leadership.
Clearly. Yes. Well, let me say this: it's not that failed leadership by itself create terrorism, but it is a
create an environment for terrorism.
Yes, it's
like a catalyst.
It creates an environment where it's easy for France and all other foreign things to come and then do that, because when people are poor, abandoned, and stuff like that, it's easy to come and then take them and then tell them, look, you know what, when you die, you go to heaven.
They'll give you something.
And now I'll take care of the widow and the children and stuff like that. And then, in fact, when you fight, they actually take care of your family, which the government has failed to do. Yes.
Okay.
So you have those.
Now, Niger, you wrote a book about the former president.
Bazoum, that's right.
Bazoum.
Yeah, so let's go back to
Bazoum. I'm sure you've made a series of trips to Niger at the time, maybe when he was still there.
Yes.
Now, you met with him, you have discussed with him,
yes,
and he's your friend. And
he
so
is my friend. I won't
you are also you are also his advisor in one or two ways.
Well, I was talking to him. I don't know if I was his advisor.
Yeah, because a friend, you can still be an advisor, unofficial advisor.
Yes, definitely, I was that. But let me tell you a little bit about Bazoum.
No, my question is,
yes,
many feel you betrayed them by your book. But what they say, the Basel they saw, is not the Basel you describe in your book.
I know. That's what I will try to explain now to your televiewers. I've met Bazoum in 1991 at the National Conference of Niger. And at the time, he was the head of the trade union of the workers' trade union of Niger. And then he was, if we had same views on almost everything, on national issues, and so he was a pure socialist with Marxist training, and just like me. And then, so therefore we became friends, and then we kept that friendship for a long time. In my book about Bazoum, I was showing how his party that he created with Issoufou,
yes,
that the one that was president for 10 years before him, I showed how their party, the PNDS, worked out for 20 years, because they were created in 1990, and then it took them 20 years to arrive to power. And in fact, when I wrote that book, I was trying to show particularly to Cameroonian political parties, that when you want to take power, you have to have a long-term plan. So any person that comes and then tells people, I created my party yesterday, and then tomorrow I'll be a president, is a charlatan. He's just selling false dreams to people. And then I showed how they were able, as a leftist group, to play in the contradiction within the ruling forces, and then did so step by step until they were able to take power in 2011.
2011.
Yeah, 2010. Yeah. The election was 2010, and then it started in 2011. So, and then rule for 10 years and then pass over to Bazoum. That's what my book was about. It was a call for political parties to learn, if they want to make fundamental change, to have long-term plans.
To have a strategy.
Yeah. And then who says strategy talks long-term? Because if you just short-term, that is tactics, it's not strategy. Okay, you can do tactics in short-term, but you have to be strategic. And unfortunately, in Cameroon, for instance, people don't have the strategy. Those political parties, they don't have a strategy. Everybody's telling you that in 2025 they are going to win, and then you ask them how you going to win. They don't. You don't have none of the four fundamentals of power, which are the military. You don't control the military. You don't control the finances. You don't have no diplomatic forces, and then none of them has really any form of popular control. So those are the four things. And then when you want to have a plan of taking the power, you want to play in one of those four.
Yeah.
And none of them are playing on it. They just on social media saying that the president élu, chairman, stuff like that. So I'm sorry, but 2025, they say in French, c'est déjà plié, quoi. Yes.
It's already
the relationship of forces tells you what's going to happen in 2 years. But now, am I saying that I'm defeatist and then that we shouldn't do anything? No, I'm just precisely saying that you have to have a long-term plan. And then long-term plan means that you have to first train your own political cadre properly, and then raise the consciousness of the people, because the only factor in which people that want fundamental change can do is play on the people. And then how do you turn the people into a political force? Is by educating them politically. But that's not what the political parties are doing. Every political party is like a church, where you have this priest that is there, this pastor, and then he's saying, I'm going to do this, and then everybody is supposed to say, yes, sir, yes, master, stuff like that. You don't get change, fundamental change, by turning people into stupid individuals. And now you don't get power neither by not having complicity within the army. You have to even educate the military, and then tell them that no, you have to play your role, and stuff like that.
As defending the constitution.
Yes, defending, because the constitution is an idea. And then when and even though the letter of the constitution may say something, there is a spirit behind it, and then you can say to the military that, look, you have to defend the spirit, of the constitution. And then the other thing that I see political leaders in Cameroon lacking completely is that they don't have any diplomatic power. They don't have no, they have nothing. You know, a few of them try to go to France, and then, you know, just to be received by civil servant in the foreign ministry. But if you want to take power, the first thing that you need to do is to have presidents that are your friends. You know, I know a lot of political leaders say they don't even know one or two presidents. I'm like, how you want to become a president and then you don't have one friend that's a president? I'm sorry. You have to have many friends that are president, and then they may tell you how they got there.
Or former president of different other countries.
Yes, even former president. But a lot of them don't even have no friends outside of Cameroon. And then they say they want to be president. And I was like, how you going to be president? And then you haven't even met a president. It's almost like somebody saying that he wants to be a doctor and he never met a doctor in his life. You know, come on. You want to be a doctor, go to a hospital, talk to a doctor. Do something, you know, and then that doctor may, you know, mentor you into becoming one. So in any event, the point I'm making simply is that, unfortunately, most of the political entrepreneurs in Cameroon are really selling pipe dreams to people, and then they don't really...
So you call them political entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I call them political entrepreneurs. They're just political business people.
But okay, could it be that it is because of the hostile political climate we have in Cameroon, or is it because of just their personal interest that they don't want to, they are fighting for their personal interest and then want to pin it on the people?
Well, a combination of factors. First, I don't want to seem like I am mocking people, because among the people that are in opposition, many people are sincerely hoping or wanting something to happen. What I am mocking, however, is the strategy that they use. And because it will not work, it hasn't worked for the past 30 years, and then it's about time that people go back to the drawing board and then think differently. But you asked the question, is it because the regime does not want change? Yes, this system, the totalitarian regime that we have here, is allergic to democracy. They don't want no democracy. They don't want it. You know, even the way they have structured the laws in political parties are made such as those political parties are really instrument to just accompany the CPDM. Yeah. If let's go from 1990 to today. You have, first of all, most of those political parties are headed by people that used to be in the government, in the CPDM. All right, so they have the same political mindset. You can see the dictatorship within their own political parties. Yes. You know, there's no democracy, there's no nothing, they don't change.
If you rise up against the chairman, you're fired.
They put you out, you stuff like that.
You announce to go against the chairman to
they get you out. You know, so those are CPDM people. You see that most of them, you know, I mean, from Bello to Kamto, those are people that work for the government, including Fru Ndi, that was also a very high CPDM person. You know, so that's for one thing. So their own mindset is already problematic. But, you know, the strategy also is a failed one. But there's a third one. I would say the Cameroonian people themselves, that are refusing to educate themselves, to pick up their responsibility to educate themselves politically, so that they don't fall, you know, into those traps that are set either by the government or the so-called opposition.
Okay, now let's come now to looking at, you have explained why you wrote that book, You have explained why, probably, but you have not explained probably what could have been the cause of his ousting.
Yes.
Because which is something that many are asking, that many who are watching the news on TV, that yeah, there's a coup d'etat in Niger, but you are somebody who can actually give us an insight because you are closer to him.
Yes.
And you talk to him and you guys discussed.
Yes, actually, yeah. Well, you know, I would say that the coup d'etat in Niger has about 3 or 4 causes. First is external. France attempt to maintain its grip on Niger uranium and then oil, because you know now Niger has become an oil-producing country, and then there's a pipeline that will take that oil and then pass through Benin. Normally, it should have passed through Cameroon because it was easier for them to pick it up there, take it to Chad, and then down into an existing pipeline. But I don't know, the French decided otherwise, and then
because of the anti-French sentiment probably in Cameroon.
Well, I don't know for whatever reason, but they decided to pass it to Benin. But let's just go back to the thing itself. The reason for the coup is France maintaining its grip on power, holding Issoufou first, because to understand why Bazoum failed, you have to go back to Issoufou. Issoufou signed certain agreements. When Bazoum takes over the power, Issoufou still trying to pull the strings.
To maintain this argument.
Yes, and for the past 2 years, in fact, Bazoum has been trying to get out of those things and then wasn't too successful in doing so. And when he tried to change even the head of the political, of the presidential guard, Chani, the guy arrested him the next day. So that was that. You know, so in the case of Bazoum, you have to, when you go deep into it, you understand that Bazoum never actually took power. He was put there by Issoufou and never really exercised anything, and then got to a point of fatigue himself, you know, where either I'm president or I am not. And, you know, if I'm president, I should be able to, you know, to mark my signature on this power. He wasn't able to do that. And then when he tried, he was overthrown by the military. So that was just, that's the case in this particular case.
Let me just take on some messages. Okay, yes. You want
but that is not the only reason. The other reason is that the security, the French are trying to keep a grip, and then the security situation is not getting any better. You know, so that was also the reason why Chani was able to get all the military behind him, because it's like this guy is mismanaging the war, and you know, and then we are dying there, and he's listening to France too much. I don't know if Chani will not listen to France, but that's the excuse that he used to rally all the military forces behind him.
Good day to you all in the studio. To me, my opinion, we are not safe as long as the French forces and Wagner group, especially with what we see in areas where they operate, like Mali, Central African Republic. Now I even watch a map of Wagner group areas of operation in Africa. Cameroon is among, from Noni in Boya. This is from Noni in Boya. This it says, good afternoon to you guys. Happy Sunday to the team. This is a very good program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for coming, and I'm getting a deep analysis as to what really is ongoing in Africa. God bless you. This is also coming from Agbo in Boya. This one writing from Yaoundé. Good afternoon, House of Commons. It is a very good program, very educative. I would just wish to ask this question. When we talk about the coup d'etat in Cameroon, can we also say that what is happening in the Anglophone Cameroon is as a result of coup d'etat because the agreement of federation was not respected? Please ask your guest to explain on that. This other one, right, he says, my name is Ashu, writing from Kumba. Nice program. God bless you guys in the studio. I'm following up the program. This other one says, happy Sunday to you in the studio, and also happy Sunday to your guest. My question to your guest is, why is it that despite the anti-French sentiment in Cameroon, Cameroon is still using the FCFA? What will it cost us to leave the FCFA? Is that why the president has gone to Russia? Is the days ahead pregnant?
That's a good question. Yes, so, well, everybody will
maybe start from this last one.
Yeah, the last question, that's indeed, because that's quite an interesting one. You know, the France CFA, everybody agrees that it is a bad idea. The problem is that they haven't been able, because you're talking about 16 countries that have that fake money.
Yeah, 14.
The what?
They're 14, right?
It's about 16.
About 16.
Yeah, because you have Equatorial Guinea, that was not a former French colony,
Yes.
plus I think Comoros or some other place like that. So yeah, they're about 16, I think. But whatever the number is, whether 14 or 16, there are many. And then now, for them to decide how to get out of it, it may not be as simple as it might seem at first sight. Because they've been pulling the resources together, and the ideal would be for them to create money and sever the link to France.
Yeah, what will become of the reserve? Could it be that it is because of the reserve that are kept in the French treasury, that maybe they are afraid of maybe launching a new currency, and if they launch a new currency, France will block all this money? And
well,
would that be a factor?
Okay, let me say this. Technically speaking, that money that is kept there can just be taken in one day and then transferred into those central banks that we have. So I don't think that the reserve at itself is the problem. The problem that the country have, among others, is that they have all those countries to agree together what to do, and they don't see eye to eye. When they will sit down, Ouattara, who is a French puppet, will want something, the president of Burkina will want something else, and then Benin will want something else, they may not be ready, or whatever the case may be.
Like the case of the ECO, the West African currency they were planning to put in place, and
then you see how
manipulated by France and
Macron and then Ouattara quell this thing and then turn it into nothingness. So those are some practical difficulties that they have. Now the other option is for a given country to say, forget it, I pull out of it. Now when you make that decision, then you feel the heat from the others, and including France. So because you can see people like even Thomas Sankara wanted to pull out, but every time you go to the drawing board, you find out that if I do it, this might happen to me. So it is doable. It must be done, but it requires.
I think it's a gradual process.
It requires courage, and then a lot of skill. And then sometimes that is lacking from those leaders. Either they have the courage but not the skill, or they have the skill but not the courage. So, yeah.
If you were to be president of Cameroon,
yes,
will you take that decision to pull out?
I wrote a paper when I was a student of economics. In my fourth year of economics, I wrote a paper, and that was in 1982. And I took the position of Professor Fru Ndi on that issue. We should pull out. Cameroon can pull out. We have enough resources and stuff like that to pull out, which may not be the case
with other nations.
With some other nations. But Cameroon can pull out tomorrow if they choose to.
Okay.
And then in reality, you know, every country can pull out. If Gambia has its own money, I don't understand why Chad cannot have one. Yes.
Okay.
You know, so yeah.
Now let's
we can pull out. There's no problem. It's just fear. People just because we have the skills. We have to run the central bank. You just need a bunch of accountants, you know, and then that's it. Really, you know.
So, which means the implication that the person asks is, should we be expecting something in the days ahead that the president has gone now to Russia?
Well, I doubt. I doubt it. I think this gentleman is too old to make any fundamental change in the last. You know, you don't become a revolutionary at 90 years old.
Yes.
But he's still 80 something.
He's 90. Eh?
He's 90.
No, 80 something, 89 or something like that.
That man is 90. He'll be 92 in 2025.
At St. Petersburg, we watched the president of Cameroon stating that, calling himself the best president in Russia.
Oh no! He was in France. That he said he was the best student.
Yeah, best student.
Yeah, he was the best student of France. Yes,
and
then surprisingly, he's in Russia. In this context, he took the courage.
Very first time he's going to Russia.
That's right. And then one thing that one can say about Mr. Biya is that you know, those of you that may have grown up in a house where you had either a cook or a person working in the house, how you call this? A maid or house
domestic worker.
Yeah, domestic worker. You know, male or female, and then that has been there for a long time. You know, that person, you know, like they've been working for the family for a long time. You know, they become like almost the family. They know all the secret. Down the relationship even shifts sometime where it is that.
You find it difficult to assign them.
Domestic worker now knows so many things that is he or she is the one manipulating even the head. So Biya is give me always when I look at him in his relationship to France, it makes me think of that type of relationship that he's been the houseboy of France for so long that now he controls France and then he knows so many things on France that he can take freedom. You know, it's almost like a prostitute and his pimp. You know, so you know, when the older the prostitute gets, the more freedom he can take away from his proxenate. You know, so Biya has consistently in the past, I'll say 15 years, really signing agreements with other countries and reducing the grip of France on the economy. He didn't do that for revolutionary reasons. He did that to keep his power. There's two things. There's one thing to say, I want to free my country from foreign domination because I want sovereignty for my country. There's another thing to say, I want to keep my power, and then since France is not helping me to do this or that, let me go and sell my services to somebody else. You know, so that's what Biya has done. And then assign, in the case of Russia, military agreements with Russia. And you know, those that can follow the thing closely also may notice that most military, he signed agreements with Israel too, and most of our officers don't go to France anymore. You know, like there used to be a time where 80% of the military were being trained in France. They don't go there anymore. They go to Russia, they go to China, they go to India, they go to Israel, Brazil even.
The bee was even trained by the Israelis.
Exactly right. And then his guard are in the hands of the Israelis. You know, so France. He has put himself in a position that if France want to overthrow him, it's going to be quite difficult for them, to do that. But unfortunately, I would say that he never did that for the interest of the Cameroonian people. He did that to keep his power, you know, and then that's the thing. However, it's still a good thing in the sense that whoever come after him will find a situation where France, you know, where you can more easily kick France out than you could have 20 years ago.
Greetings, Mr. Jarvis. I think Coup is good in countries where the president has overstayed in power with so much rise in corruption and insecurity in the country. More should come if there's any place, because some people think only their stomach can accommodate the good things of that country. This other one says, greetings to you guys. Greetings to you, Mr. Jarvis. Coup d'etat is everywhere in Africa. It shouldn't be a problem when the military does that. I give you an example. If a democratically elected president decides to change the constitution of the country to extend his stay in power, that is a coup as well. The constant rise in coup is because most of these democratically elected presidents are puppets to the West, and the leaders are out there for their self-interest. I give you an example of the coup that happened in Chad. The French president came to endorse the military junta. Now the same coup happened in Niger. The French government is condemning. Then, so who is deceiving who?
Exactly, that's a paradox indeed. And then that's one of the things that I said to Bazoum. It wasn't making any sense. I'm talking about Bazoum
Niger.
aligning to the position of France. That will agree for the coup in Chad, and then refuse it in Mali, and then in Burkina Faso and in Guinea. It didn't make any sense. You see, but like I said again, you have a different type of coups. When it is inspired by outside, then you see all those Western support.
They support it because ironically his question was clear. Yes. We saw how Macron sat
with him,
with Debbie.
That's right.
And Chad, and also went to America. It was received.
Exactly.
The Africa American Summit and the France Summit was received.
That's right. The Western people, the Western powers are just taking.
But in order they are condemning.
Yeah. So the moment something happened that may not be in their interest, then they start.
My question to you, Mr. Chamani, with your wealth of experience, understanding African politics, you have been to Sierra Leone, you have been to South Africa, you have been to most of the countries in Africa, you have been there, and you have also been to most countries around the world, in US and the rest. Now, my question is, with this experience you have, can Cameroon escape this coup d'etat?
Well, I just said earlier that Cameroon has been nothing but the history of coup d'etats. Now, they may not have been successfully military coup d'etat. There was an attempt in 1984.
Following this French sentiment.
But let me say frankly, as I believe, given the difficult situation in which Biya has put this country, I don't see how after Biya there will not be a coup d'etat. I'm talking now about a military coup, in the sense that Biya has killed all possibility for a civilian transition of power. Where he has put the country is in a situation where his successor is older and sicker than he is. So should he die tomorrow, we will find ourselves in the situation of Chad, where the guy that was supposed to replace Déby was so sick that when they told him that Déby died, he was like, please, you look at me, I can't be president. I am too sick. And Nyat is too sick. He's too old and too sick to be even...
Why you say too sick? Many you say he's strong.
Who say he's strong? No, he doesn't. No, Nyat doesn't say he's strong. Biya look like he's strong. I mean,
stronger than Nyat.
He's stronger than Nyat. I can tell you that for a fact. So, and then the thing is, there's one thing to be in power and remain in power. There's nothing to go and take power when you're old. Do you understand? There's a difference. You can be there, and then by inertia, you continue to rule. But to now leave your sick bed to become a president, that can kill you in one day
because of the pressure.
Exactly. So even if the constitution says for 120 days, but you'll be dead by the next week. So I think that Biya did it purposefully, because normally, if he really liked this country, he should have organized and make a clear path to succession. That is, which every time you talk to him, he say, "No, I have done it. It's in the constitution that if not there, this is what will happen.
The speaker.
And then if I, the head of
the Senate,
yeah. And then if I am still alive until 2025, then there will be an election, and then whomever takes over will take over. But we know that it simply won't happen like that. Now, while doing that, not only did he kill any possibility for any person within his own power structure to replace him, because he's divided them. And then you can see the infighting that are happening within the ruling class.
We have the Frankist movement. We
yes, you have also the Ngongo group, and then the whatever group, and then the whatever group, and you know, so that ruling oligarchy is made of various factions, and then those factions are fighting among themselves to position themselves after Biya, because and then you know, and then that fighting gets ugly because the rules are not clear. Yeah. That's why people are stealing money, you know, and then saying to themselves, hey, if whatever comes, if I have a war chest, you know, and
so,
you know, am I?
So you are saying that the future is bleak.
It is bleak, and then in that type of situation, the only organized force that is structured and stuff at the military, and then when there's so much confusion, usually they step in.
Okay, do you see the president, the current president, Biya, still standing as a presidential candidate come 2025?
If he is alive, he will stand, because it is not in his DNA to think otherwise. That man, if he's alive in 2025, he will be the candidate.
And he will win.
He will win.
Good afternoon, Jarvis. I think coup d'etat is good in a country where the president is in the tone of Western nations. This is Rene writing from United Arab Emirates. Max from Germany. Max Bernier from Germany. Happy Sunday, Max. And we pray that God should continue to guide you. You are a panelist with us. And happy Sunday to your family, Max. Max Wright, he says, hello, Jarvis. If there were a real government planned for the young Cameroonians, then Mr. Joker should belong to that commission to educate. Mr. Joker and Chamani should belong to that commission to educate us about our history, so that we Cameroonians have the same knowledge about the country. Greetings and thank you for the great show.
All right. So let me just say this thing, because I don't want people to misconceive. When I say if Biya is alive in 2025, he will be a candidate and then he will win. No, I'm not. What I'm saying is, if Cameroonians sit and continue to drink beer and don't educate themselves politically, do not do what they must do when they're not happy with the government, then the same thing will happen. Do you understand? Yeah. That's right. So,
that's why.
So I'm calling on the Cameroonian to become more politically aware. Politics is a science. You can learn it. You can learn to educate yourself. When they say it's a science, it's not that you have to go to school and then get a PhD. No, I'm just saying that it is the responsibility of every citizen to understand politics and then to become involved, but not involved blindly, not to just listen to people that, you know, like waiting like for messiahs to come. No, the only messiah in politics are the people, and then the people is made of the sum of the individual in the society. So the more we take our responsibility, we only get the government that we deserve. Let's put it like that.
Okay, we are almost out of time. The 1 hour 30 minutes is rapid. I want us to briefly look at...
I told you it was going to be fast.
Yes, I want us to briefly look at Fru Ndi. Fru Ndi was buried over the weekend.
Yes.
He was commander in armed in 1990. When you look at the role he played, the fight together with Yonder Black and the rest, Bernard Muna, all those who put in effort to see that there was the reintroduction of multi-party politics. Yes. But he was buried in a town where he has done so much, and some few people thought they should call for a ghost town because he didn't buy the ideology.
That's right. Well, you know, one thing that I first have to pay homage to the man, Fru Ndi. He was my comrade in arms in the 1990s. We fought together, to bring back multipartism in Cameroon, and then we went together also all the way to the creation of, we created a coordination, together, and then we went to the Union for Change that in 1992, that chose him as the candidate for a transition of 3 years, and then we were successful in actually winning that election. And then, in such, I would say that was the glorious period of the fight, and he played a very, very important and fundamental role up to 1990. But starting in 1993, our way parted. I have to say that from a political point of view, because at that time, all that political capital that we built in the Union for Change, he tried to confiscate it for his own personal benefit, and then use it not only to quell dissent within the SDF itself, where he started getting rid of the true founders. Because one has to be clear, Fru Ndi is not the founder of SDF. He came in quite late. The process of creating of SDF started in 1987, on the ground by the Abraham Mukon, the Ben Muna, Siga Sanga, Dr. Akuchu, and stuff like that. And at that time, he was in CPDM, fighting to become the head of, section president of the MESAM. That's historical, yes, Ashidiashu is when he lost that he became disgruntled, and then eventually was pulled into the SDF by his uncle, Siga Sanga. That's a historical fact. I'm not trying to demean his contribution. But once he got in there from 1990 to 1992, he played a very, very important role. After 1992, unfortunately, things became a little bit more controversial, and then that's why he's dying now in controversy, I should say. But having said that, if we are all humans, and people will be remembered for what they've done good, and also be criticized for what they have done maybe a little bit less. I can say that as he dies now, let's just wish that his soul rests in peace. He's done what he could do, and now is for the younger generation to pick up from there and then do what remains to be done. Okay. Clearly, the Amazonians are unhappy with him because he didn't. he
refused to take up their command. They wanted him to lead and to declare independence.
That's right. And then in that area, I agree with him. I don't think that there's any chance that Cameroon will be split in two. However, I don't think neither that his posture of getting too close to Biya to the point that now you have national official thing was a good thing neither. So anyway, but may his soul rest in peace.
We're out of time. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you for having me today. We look forward to having more interesting programs like this to clear the public on political consciousness that unfortunately beer in Cameroon has killed the political consciousness of many Cameroonians. And we pray that maybe come 2025 there should be this reawakening. Like in the 90s, our own generation did not live in the 90s. We hope that come 2025, we're going to see that kind of transition. We're going to see the Cameroonian youth more interested in the political life of their country, and not just leave it to this passing generation that is in the helm of power at the moment.
I am telling you right now, I'm speaking to the youth. You have a big window of opportunity to bring about fundamental change in Cameroon for two reasons. One is the weakening of the West, including France. So the grip on Cameroon is going to wither. The second thing is the going out of Biya, and then the infighting within the ruling class gives you an excellent opportunity to do so. My word to the young generation is, this is your time. Make it count.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chamani, for coming. It's been a privilege to have you.
Thank you, Jarvis, for inviting me.
Maybe a message to your friend?
Well, I would just tell him, look, now, just rest. Do not follow the French that are saying they want to reinstate you. You've lost the power. Just sit. The people didn't come out to, to call you back. Do not listen to the French. You've done. You have been in power for 12 years with Issoufou. You all have done what you have done. Let this thing go.
You can visit our YouTube channel, BT Media Group, to watch this program, a rebroadcast of this program. Those of you who are watching us on Facebook, you say you had difficulties watching because of the breaking signal. What we can promise you is that in the course of the rebroadcast, it will be streamed back on our Facebook platform, but on YouTube, it was okay, perfectly working on YouTube. And also, this program comes out every Sunday, exactly 12 to 1:30. To all those of you who have taken time to contribute, we want to say thank you. If you are watching us across the world and you want to be a panelist to our program, you want to share your views, the number that you see on your screen, +23767643138 is the number you can reach me. I will include you into our group of analysts and on House of Commons. When the topic are posted there, if it is of your interest, you can contribute and you can indicate we'll book you for the program. Thank you, Desmond, Akeba. Thank you, Legend, for production. Thanks to all those who took our time to produce today's edition of our program, and a special good afternoon to you who are watching the program. I leave you with this: no matter the matter, what matters is your matter. What should matter for you this day is that you should get involved in politics, for only our involvement can change our world. Thanks for watching. My name is Tah Mai Jarvis, Cameroon's commercial capital, Douala, Fengu, John Bange. Bye-bye.